All right. Hey guys, what's going on? Tried this about 2 times before and it just was me rambling. I think I'm gonna have, I'm gonna do some edited versions of this where I kind of think about what I'm gonna say before. But for now, I'm just gonna, talk about the experience of projects and try to keep it concise and not rambly. There's a lot to talk about, especially when you're, um, you know, consumed by a certain project for a few days. It really consumes your brain. So the idea here is I built, you hear about AI, ML all the time. So coming from a full stack background, a lot of JavaScript work, a lot of cloud work. I really wanted to dive into this thing that I'm hearing about all the time with certain tools that I'm just not familiar with using and kind of see what I could do. So what I didn't want to do was, watch some YouTube video and watch somebody else build something and put it in my GitHub and cool and move on, run it locally. I wanted to build on this thing that I built, which is called the Digital Vanguard, which is like a web app for developers to use and share. Basically just this little environment for them to keep, like kind of a community portfolio type of idea. And so I wanted to incorporate this tool somehow into that. So what I thought of was what we call the tag generator, which it basically, based on in the Digital Vanguard, you have all these articles and it takes all of the files associated with that article, kind of packages it up, sends it to a Lambda function and produces tags, like little hashtag-y tags that are representative of your files, right? And it's not like, I didn't want it to feel like, oh, I just created a hash map of all the words and then see which ones you said the most that are techie and then use those. It kind of feels that way, but it also makes suggestions around, all of the stuff that you talk about in your articles. It'll kind of align other technologies, like Redis. And it's like, well, what is Redis? For cache, like if you mention caching or something like that, it'll say Redis or something. You can go, basically the idea is to go explore these other things that are kind of loosely associated with what you built. So, that's the kind of high level idea there. And I wanted to incorporate it into the Digital Vanguard so that you guys could use it. I can use it. It's cool. So I'll go ahead and kind of demo that out here. I've got, here's prod. Here is the web page. And then down over here, I've actually got the Postgres database kind of set up for some work later. So we'll go into my portfolio. There's Cormac's portfolio. Go into mine, and then, here I actually started writing about it. I'm going to attach this video to it later. I'll quickly show you the architecture of it. Pretty straightforward. I need to add an S3 bucket in here. This isn't quite it. But the idea being, right, you got the Digital Vanguard set up here, and then it hits the API gateway, which feeds the traffic to the Lambda function. I had to come up with some workarounds because this is using TensorFlow Hub, and some pretty large packages, like some pretty large computing power here. So you can't just import TensorFlow. You can maybe do Lite or CPU, but you can't import the whole thing into a Lambda and hope for the best, right? Lambda has storage capacity, storage limitations, memory limitations, disk, all that. So the workaround that I came up with was to create the Lambda with an image. So to establish a custom runtime using a Docker image, right, that sort of establishes those dependencies and acts like a Lambda layer. So working with it locally, create the Docker image with all the dependencies that you need, use AWS SAM to test that Lambda function locally. I was using that tool quite a bit just because I'm on Mac and this is running in Amazon Linux and there's platform differences. And so I wanted to make sure that what I'm building locally is going to apply in a Lambda function instead of building, pushing, waiting 30 minutes for the image to get up there and then, rinse and repeat all day. Miserable. So cool, the build image gets up into ECR. The Lambda function, I'm training the models locally. So I'm not trying to accrue a bunch of unnecessary costs for this right now while it's low level. I train the models locally, run a little train model function, take those model files, store them in S3 to be consumed directly by the Lambda handler. So it takes those high level, does what it does, TensorFlow does what it does, takes the input, which is all of your files, all the text in your files, consumes it, and then makes suggestion tags based on what it reads. High level, that's kind of what's going on. And you can see it here. So this pink text right here, Lambda, TensorFlow, Docker, blah, blah, blah. That is from the tag generator. And I think it's applied to all of my stuff so far. So you can kind of see here, it's got this cool little visual. These are not tags you made. These are when you add files, this runs. So before I had it running like every time you visited an article, every time you visited here, it would hit that Lambda, which is just completely unnecessary. It made more sense to actually make it, to base it off of creating a new article, introducing some new input. Otherwise, we can hit it, right? When you create an article, we hit the Lambda function, get those suggestions, and then store them in a table in Postgres associated with the article ID. So, and then now every time you come back, you don't need to, if you're not adding new files, we don't need to be hitting that Lambda function. It's unnecessary and it's costly, potentially. So, you see it here. We've already got it run, but I would like to demonstrate it doing its thing. So let's just show all of the dynamic tags in our Postgres. There it is. And then here's the tag ID, right? This is the one we're interested in. We want to get rid of this record here. So we'll go delete from dynamic tags where tag ID is equal to that. Boom. And then if we run this, we no longer have the record. Very nice. And now if we refresh the screen over here, we don't have any tags. Oh no. But at least we got these tags. You know, these are tags that you establish, the comma separated tags that you can add whenever you create an article. But these we don't have anymore. Oh no, what are we gonna do? We're gonna add a new detail. So we'll demonstrate this. And again, I wanted to keep this kind of like a background process. I didn't want you creating a file and then sitting there and waiting and 4 or 5 seconds and the loading spinner and blah, blah, blah. Not necessary. Don't interrupt the workflow. Just you can create a detail and this is happening in the background and it'll show when it's ready. So we grab that, add the README, submit. Okay, cool. Something's happening. And we're just kind of clicking around. We're living our life. We're doing our thing, looking through our files. Blah, blah, blah. It's cool. We're just living our life. Living. Not expecting anything. It's cool. Let's give it another second. What's this? And there's the tags. So, went up to the Lambda, took all your files, all the text in your files, ran that calculation, and generated tags, and then also stored those tags in Postgres. So now, if we were to go to an incognito tab, launch so, and go to the digital Vanguard, go to Josh Gilly, go here, boom, like that, because it's stored in Postgres now. Whereas before it was like a little bit of a slower process. Maybe it's cached, but still not optimal. Now we actually store it in the dynamic tags table, and it's totally based off of when you add articles. It'll generate those new tags and store them. So yeah, and now I've got this environment with a lot of the AI ML stuff. I can really dive into the details. Create other endpoints that do other cool things for this application. I was tempted to use TensorFlow for JavaScript just to do it in the browser. Like that's cool and all, but I really wanted to leave room for myself to explore heavier operations in that world to go ahead and kind of set myself up for success. So a lot of that architecture was done over the past couple days in this work, and I think it's a cool tool. And it's, yeah, so that's it. Let's see. Vanguard tagger. I'll probably go in here and clean up this a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.